US pass a bill called the UIGEA Act, which made it illegal for banks to process payments for online gaming. Okay? That wiped out 80% of our business on a Friday night. All of Saturday and Sunday, thinking, A, we're screwed, and B, we've got 3 members of staff. Which one do we get rid of to save money?
It's quite difficult, especially in the modern age, to have a successful marriage that lasts a long time. It's also quite difficult to have a business partnership that lasts a long time. You managed to do both for decades. How the hell did you stay together for so long throughout all of that?
I just do as I'm told. I'm the shiny new object. I'm the everything's brilliant, everything's going to go fantastically well. She's the glass half empty. And it said, we are going to be the world's biggest supplier of online bingo players. Bearing in mind at the time, we were in a small office over a sandwich shop. You've got to be a hell of a salesperson to get somebody to believe that. And that's what we were selling.
Today's guest is the founder of the UK's largest bingo directory. He went from zero, fully bootstrapped, self-funded company to about an 8-figure exit in the United Kingdom. He's also now a mentor to many startups, and he's, in his words, is a sounding board for business owners. Now, you may ask me, Burke, you usually do startups. Why are you covering someone who's founded a bingo company? And I'll tell you why. Because when Henry Ford was building Ford, you know where he got the idea for an assembly line from? He got from a pig farm. He went to a farm, saw the pigs, he saw them on a assembly line like formation, and he was like, whoa, what if we did this with cars? That's how cars became mass manufactured. And that's why you have a car today. So how does that connect to what I just said earlier? You never know where inspiration is going to strike from. So that's why I've got Phil today. He's going to tell us about his stories from founding WhichBingo and his career. We're going to talk about his mentorship and what he does now. And you're going to probably, if you listen enough and you stick around, you're going to get some inspiration like Henry Ford and become a billionaire. Sound good? So without further ado, Phil, welcome to the Builders and Funners Show.
Nice to be here. And I never knew that story about Henry Ford. I'll have to use that.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting ones of how inspiration strikes from random places. But I want to start with your career. So you started out in the casino industry, which is interesting, right? It's a big industry, but it's kind of a little taboo. No one really admits to being in it or having been in it. Tell me about how you got into that. Like, why casinos? Why bingo? Tell me about that.
So we'll do the career in a minute. So I left university, started training as an accountant. Absolutely hated it. Got out of that and then got into selling advertising space. So I sold advertising in magazines, trade magazines, consumer magazines, and then I got into directories and Yellow Pages, which is now Yell. And then it ended up at an ad agency. And while we're at the ad agency, so this is 98, 99, we had clients coming to us saying, I want one of these newfangled websites that I've read about in the paper. So we started producing very, very basic websites at the time. And this sounds really strange saying it now. I was thinking this internet thing might have legs, it might be an industry I want to be in. So I thought, well, I want to get client side, and a lot of people who work in agencies end up going client side because they want to be the boss, the decision maker. So I went client side with a company called William Hill, who are one of the UK's major at the time land-based sports books, who had got into online sports betting. And I was introduced, I was recruited to launch their first ever online casino. So when you say you got into the casino industry, it's yes, but no, because all I did was launch. They had the software, they've got a third party in. So I was brought in to launch their first ever online casino because I'd done 18 months account handling for clients who wanted websites. So back in 2000, I was an online expert with 18 months experience, and that's how I got into, as you say, into casinos.
Interesting. I'm going to keep talking about the casino thing, but I just want to, some came up when you mentioned with like 18 months of experience, you were considered an expert. I see a bit of a parallel, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I see a bit of a parallel between that time and now with AI. Do you think that's kind of the case now? Are you kind of seeing the similarities, or I'd love to get your takes on before we continue about your journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. I actually was looking at. I'm also an angel investor now, and I was looking at an opportunity this morning, which is AI led. And as part of the presentation, they were talking about the big consultancy firms are charging, I mean, like eye-watering amounts for AI, consulting about AI for clients because nobody knows. It's classic. The kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and we're very, very much at that point at the moment. People say AI, and they go, "Oh my god, AI," and then actually go, "Well, do you actually know what you're talking about? Do you how does or machine learning? That's another one. And I see quite a lot of business pitches, and people just throw in AI as a shiny new thing. It's like you say, 25 years ago, and we're online as well. Wow.
Yeah, I was just curious. I know we got sidetracked a little bit, but going back to your journey. So you launched this online casino. It's early, early, still relatively early days of the internet. You're now in that space. How does Which Bingo come about? What's the founding story there?
Okay, so while I was at William Hill, they asked me to have a look into the online bingo market because it was just starting at that time. Because they'd gone sportsbook, casino, and then sort of bingo started appearing on the horizon. So I did a presentation to the board, sort of investigating what was going on in the market, all that sort of thing. They decided at the time not to do it for various reasons. And at the end of that year, so we're talking end of 2000, I left William Hill and started work talking about Kingdom of the Blind. I was an online gaming consultant because I'd done a year, so I was a year ahead of everybody else. Um, and somebody approached me and said, I want to get into this online gaming space. Where should I go? And I said, online bingo is going to be the next big thing. And about 48 hours later, I thought, hang on a minute. If I'm telling other people to get into it, why don't I? So I sort of dusted down this presentation I'd done to William Hill. So shuffled it around a bit and took it out to the market, real Shark Tank in real life, to try and get funding for what would have been the UK's first ever pay-to-play online bingo site. And I got zero. I got zero funding. Part of the reason was the dot-com bubble burst, various other reasons. But what I'd done is I'd built a really, really basic website which listed all the US bingo sites that were out there. So about a dozen of them. And on it, I'd put a really simple pop-up questionnaire so that when I did my Shark Tank presentation, I had player data, how regularly they play, how much they spend, frequency, all that sort of stuff, what the demographic, all that sort of thing. But what happened was some of the on the American online bingo sites that were on my website contacted me and said, "Can we advertise on your website?" Now, bearing in mind, anybody who's listening to this, you must have been listening. My previous career was selling advertising space, so I thought, well, I've sold advertising space in print. How hard can it be to do it online? And it's simply a case of send me some money, and I'll run an ad, and that became the business. So the business was completely accidental. There was no business plan. There was no projections. The cool kids now would call it a pivot. It was just people started sending me money, so I said, "Okay, we'll run the ads," and it grew and grew and grew, and that was the launch of the business.
You kind of brushed over, but like you mentioned that you started pitching investors around the time they approached you for advertising. Did you just kind of drop the fundraising efforts? You're like, we're getting money now, we're okay. No need for funding. I don't want to dilute my shares. We'll keep that side for now. We'll just keep making our money in advertising. Was that your approach, or how were you thinking about that?
The two things were different. One was a pay to play bingo site. One was a directory, a website. So the two we'd sort of run out of anybody to do our pitch to, because bearing in mind this is the year 2000, the angel investment market is nothing like it is now. So there weren't a lot of people to go and ask. Don't forget, and part of the reason I think we didn't get funding was we were pitching. We were pitching into a dot-com bubble burst. We were pitching a game that was legally grey, so it wasn't illegal, but it wasn't legal. So there's a red light there. And in the UK, we have two major land-based bingo operators, and they were nowhere near this at the time. So people say, "Well, hang on, if the big guys aren't doing it, why do you think it's going to happen?" So we sort of ran out of people to pitch to, and then people were sending me money. I was still doing a bit of consultancy, and at the time, it got to put that sort of tipping point of, actually, I'm making more money just running ads on a website than I am actually going out and doing proper work as a consultant. So I'll drop that, and we'll just roll with this and see how it goes. I mean, I say this, there was no business plan. It was just, a lot of people don't admit to this in business. Sometimes it's about luck. It's about being at the right place at the right time. I think you then have to overlay people then seeing the opportunity and running with it. But yeah, we were lucky. The market started growing. So, if you think about it, we had a dozen websites originally, then there were 20, then there were 25, and then there were 30. There were very few competitors for doing what we were doing. So they would go, well, we're launching this website, this online bingo website. Where do we advertise it? We've come across this directory. And what we made sure we did, it was our USP from day one, was we listed every single online bingo website, whether we had a commercial relationship with them or not, so that anybody who wanted to look for a new bingo site would come to us because they knew we had every single bingo site listed. And that was how the business grew. We were right place, right time. The market grew, and as the market grew, we grew. And as that happened, we then, after we started with freelancers. Then we took the big brave step of taking an office and staff, and it grew like that.
Interesting. So let me go back to, you mentioned that there wasn't really a plan. Like none of this was planned. It just kind of happened. And you mentioned a lot of people, they won't admit the fact that a lot of what happens to them is quite serendipitous. It just happens, and you're at the right place at the right time. Last night I was having a conversation with a friend, and we're talking about how much of kind of life and what people become is planned versus spontaneous. Like we're talking about Elon Musk and who he is now. We're kind of wondering like how much of it was planned. We wonder how much of it he knew and how much of it just kind of happened because life. And so you now mentor, you now angel invest. Looking back or looking at some of the other startups you're working with and a lot of the other startups you're mentoring, do you find that building a business is kind of more like an art than a science, where it's just a lot of it's just not planned and it's just like most cases just happen spontaneously? Do you think it's kind of just a part of it?
We get really deep here. I think there is more out of your control than people make out or like to say there is. You can look back after 10 years and see your roadmap and go, oh yeah, that looked quite good. That worked quite well. But there's a lot of, dead ends. There's a lot of missed opportunities. As I say, there's a lot of luck. And you can generally, if you're generally heading in the right direction and generally doing the right things, and you keep your eyes open and you stay inquisitive and you look at opportunities, things will feel like they fall into your lap. But it's what's the old Gary Player thing? The more I practice, the luckier I get. It's that type of thing. So putting yourself out there, being in the right places, meeting the right people, doing the right things, all add up together that generally you move in the right direction. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Let me rephrase my question, because I think so. Like you've made millions of dollars and now you're an investor, now you're a mentor. You're kind of what a lot of people in my generation would like to be like, right? Where you're at right now is the idealized kind of point. When you were a young man, did you think you would ever become this? Did you want to become this? How much of it was planned? Or like, I'm sure you've met a lot of successful people who have, gotten to the pinnacle in their fields. How much of it's planned versus how much of it's just they were just tough and they just stuck, like they were tough as nails. They just stuck to it. They figured it out and they end up becoming who they are. Which one do you kind of lean towards?
None of my career was planned. None of my career was planned. As I said, I started as a trainee accountant. Became a trainee accountant because my parents thought accountancy was a good career to go into. I fell into advertising sales. I swapped jobs numerous times. I ended up at an ad agency. The ad agency happened to be doing websites, so I ended up client side doing online casino, which then the opportunity arose. And I often say, you could, and this isn't bigging myself up in any shape or form, you could take 100 people and put the same acorn of an idea in their lap, and maybe 90 of them would say, do you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'd rather have a job. And then the 10 who say, I'll have a look at it, maybe 5 of them look at it and don't do it. And then of the 5 that do it, 2 of them drop out after a year. And then 2 of them do okay, and 1 of them hits the jackpot. And that's how I think it goes. So my career wasn't planned, and I think it's about taking opportunities, and sometimes it's about just do it. I would say JFDI. None of the stuff we're usually talking about is life or death. If it doesn't work out, and as long as you don't blow every single penny you've got, you can probably find yourself another job. You could probably find yourself another opportunity. You'll learn from whatever went wrong, and you go again. If you're that type of person, or you learn, actually, entrepreneurship's not for me. I'm much better doing 9 to 5, picking up a wage at the end of the month, not having a sleepless nights at weekends, not waking up at 3 o'clock thinking, what's the strategy for next year? Not having, somebody come knock on your door on a Friday morning, say, I'm a quit. And you think, shit, how do I replace this person? Lots of people don't want that. Entrepreneurship is bloody hard work, and there's more failure than there's success. But when it works, it's great. But loads of people, it's not for them. And that's not being negative. It's just, that's what they want to do.
So let me ask you this, right? One of the reasons I wanted to start this is because I've been trying to build startups and some successfully, some not so successfully for the last 5 years. I plan on doing it for the next 50 if I live, the longer I live, like I just plan on doing this for the rest of my life. But the kind of bad side of social media is that now everyone in my generation idealizes it because they think, well, look at Phil. He just started something and he built it for 17 years and he went from zero funding and zero whatever and he made millions of dollars, an 8-figure exit. I kind of want to be like him. I'm sure he's got a yacht and he's got a great car, but people don't often see that it's never a straight line. So we talked about some of those events in your career, but we haven't talked about the oh crap, like we're screwed moments. So you built WhichBingo for 17 years, which is quite a bit of time, like literally the amount of time I've been alive. So tell me about some of those near death moments. Tell me about some of those times where you thought, man, we're screwed. Things are going horribly, like things where you're like sitting in a corner, a dark room. Tell me about those moments.
Okay. There's probably 3 of them. The first one was 2016. So 5 years with freelancers. Year 5, we start taking on staff. 2016, we've got 3 members of staff. It's ticking along quite nicely, and I've got this. I've got this nailed. We're doing okay. And on a Friday night, bearing in mind we're in the UK, so sort of early morning Friday in the US, Friday night in the UK, the government of the US passed a bill called the UIGEA Act, Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, right? Which made it illegal for banks to process payments for online gaming. Okay? That wiped out 80% of our business on a Friday night. Okay? So me and my wife spend all of Saturday and Sunday thinking, A, we're screwed, and B, we've got 3 members of staff. Which one do we get rid of to save money? And we went backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And in the end, we thought the saving we're going to make getting rid of one member of staff is going to make, the big picture, not going to make a huge amount of difference. But from a performance point of view, that's a third of our capacity, or was five of us, as myself and my wife, 3 employees. It's going to take away 20-25% of our capacity. Is it worth doing? So we made the judgment call that actually what the industry was going to do was decamp from the US to the UK. And we'd already built a UK version of our website. So we basically said, right, we'll roll the dice again and hope the market comes to the UK, which it did. And we sort of picked up again. So that was the first holy crap moment. The second one, and the second and the third one are similar, is, and anybody who's got an online business who relies on SEO will follow this one. SEO is brilliant because if you end up at the top of the search engine rankings, you get free traffic. And the three industry sectors that push the barriers most, push the edges of SEO, are porn, drugs, and gambling. So Google are always looking at porn, drugs, and gambling. What are they doing? How are they trying to game the system? What are they doing? So they came up with, and they do this quite regularly now, but they came up with a big algorithm change they did one called Panda and one called Penguin a year apart. And both times really knackered us. So we were doing quite well on the search engine ranking. So if you search for a bingo brand or a bingo phrase, we were doing very well. And we got blown out the water both times and basically had to in effect, redo all our search engine rankings, redo all our SERPs, redo our strategy. And again, it was like, I can't remember the day, but let's say, go home Friday night with, we're top of this search rank, top of this search rank, top of this search rank. Monday morning, log in and check, and you go, where are we? We're page 17 on position, 147 or something. And that obviously gets zero traffic. So obviously we've sold space to clients on the promise of traffic coming to our website, and Google have just turned the tap off. So those, there's two of the same. We had Panda, then Penguin. But, that's like you sit there in the morning and you go, holy crap, what are we going to do? So the line doesn't go from zero. It's not a, you imagine a graph with zero in the bottom left-hand corner and exit in the top right-hand corner. Get a 3-year-old kid to draw a squiggle on a piece of paper. That's what it looks like.
Interesting. I want to go back to one of the other things you mentioned, which is your wife, right? It's quite difficult, especially in the modern age, to have a successful marriage that lasts a long time. It's also quite difficult to have a business partnership that lasts a long time. You managed to do both for decades. You had a marriage, but then you also had a business partnership, and you kind of been like the kind of Bonnie and Clyde duo. Like you've been at zero, but then you've also made millions together. Tell me about, like, how did you maintain such a successful relationship? How the hell did you stay together for so long throughout all of that? Like, how do you have such a successful partnership and a marriage?
I just do as I'm told. So she worked hands-on in the business for probably the first 6 years, and then was a bit more step back, but she had her eye on it all the time. We're I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the shiny new object. I'm the everything's brilliant. Everything's going to go fantastically well. She's the glass half empty. Oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So she was my sounding board for a lot of the time, and she was able to give me a different perspective on the business. And that's probably why it worked from a business point of view. Home life, as I say, I just do what I'm told. Or if I don't do what I'm told, I get told off for doing it. Then I do what I'm supposed to have done.
Interesting. It's a I had an observation some time ago, and this is not mine, uniquely mine. It's something that a lot of people have had, where they say that some of the best, most successful partnerships are usually between people that are contrasting, kind of the opposite, both for marriage and for business partnerships. Do you think that's kind of it? Where like if you're the optimist, find the pessimist. If you're the operational person, find like the sales or technical person. Kind of always find someone that's the exact kind of opposite, right?
Particularly in business, the successful businesses are you've got one person who's um, the salesperson, the maverick, the person who's going to be on stage doing the presentations, and then you've got somebody in the background who does all the shitty stuff, all the systems, all the processes. Make sure all the the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Because me as a person, I'm big picture. This is a great idea. Let's go and do it. And I give it to the team and go, right, run with it. And they're the ones who have to go and figure out how to do it. But I've got the big idea. And again, you see all these. You mentioned Elon Musk. You see all these people who are fantastic showmen at the front, but you've got all the doers at the back who would be horrified if you said to them, "Go and stand on stage and do a presentation. Go on CNN and tell them what we're doing for the next 2 years." They would go, "No, no, 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 no. I'm quite happy, with the nuts and bolts under the hood. You be the star man." And yes, that works really, really well.
Interesting. With Elon Musk and specifically SpaceX, I think that person for Elon Musk was Gwen Shotwell, who's been mentioned in I think both of his biographies by Ashley Vance and Walter Isaacs. And you mentioned you kind of had your own Gwen Shotwell in a sense. If you're a founder starting out today and you're like, I need someone like that, how do you both find a person like that and then attract them and then retain them? Well, like you mentioned, we kind of talked about the general principles, but then like how do you like tactically go about finding, keeping, and like working with those people?
I think you have to, as the front man or front woman, you have to be the salesperson. You're the one who's selling the dream, and you are selling that dream to clients. You're selling it to customers, but you're also selling it to your team. This is where we're going. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to deliver. Do you want to get on the bus with me on this amazing journey? So the same way that you're pitching maybe for angel investment, or you're pitching for business, or you're pitching to a supplier, you're also pitching to your team as well. And if you see and find somebody that you want to be on your team, you have to sell them. Why? Very, very simple. If you're a startup, and I can't guarantee you're going to get paid. I can't. You're not going to get an office with bean bags and a slide and free Costa all day. We're gonna graft, but this is what's going to happen. You've got to really sell that to somebody, because they're leaving a job where they're getting paid every week, and it's very nice and all that. You're saying, jack in that sensible job, jack in the security you've got, and come and join me on this mad, crazy ride that I've got stuck in my head that nobody else believes yet. How do you get somebody to do that?
So how do you like you mentioned your wife is kind of like glass half full person. You like you mentioned that much of what you've gone through wasn't planned. So like you're going through this. What vision are you selling? Are you telling your team we're going to be the largest bingo site in the UK? We're going to take over the market. We're going to be the biggest. We're going to be the baddest. Was that what you were selling to them?
Yeah, yeah. So we had a guy came in, did some consultancy work for us, probably 5, 6, 7 years in, something like that. Introducing me to a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And in Jim Collins's book, he talks about a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Shoot for the stars, North Star, that type of thing. And we had, this is how long ago it was, he wrote it all on a flip chart, and we got it laminated, and we stuck it on the wall in the meeting room. And it said, we are going to be the world's biggest supplier of online bingo players. Okay? Now, as soon as you say world, that's, world's first anything is going to be big. Bearing in mind at the time, we were in a small office over a sandwich shop in the north part of our town. You've got to be a hell of you've got to be a hell of a salesperson to get somebody to believe that. Um, And that's what we were selling. And the thing is, and there's a bit of a contradiction here. When you're a startup, you really only can recruit bodies. You can't pay for the best web developer. You can't pay for the best strategist. You can't pay for the best salesperson. You've got to. I need a salesperson. I can't pay him a lot of money. I need a web developer. I can't pay a lot of money. So you've got to how else could you sell them? You've got to excite them with the idea. And it's like I say, all I can say is it's the same pitch that you're doing to a potential investor or potential supplier or potential client. You have to do the same pitch to your staff. Join me on this crazy journey.
Interesting. Now, over the 17 years of building WhichBingo and now being an angel investor and being a mentor, I'm sure you've developed principles that you live by and work by. I remember I was like 14, 15, I read Ray Dalio's Principles for Work and Life. And, it's a big one, like one big thick book of just the rules he's got. What are some principles and rules that you kind of live and work by?
Okay, I've mentioned one of them already, and that's JFDI. Um, take Nike and put an adjective that begins with F in in before it, because and the reason I say that is because I always find if you don't follow your gut instinct, you're going to spend all your time eating yourself up. Why didn't I do that? What could have happened? What could have happened? If you follow it, do some research and find out whether it feels like it's the right idea. And if it still feels like it's a good idea, go for it. Because if it fails, you'll learn from it. If it works, fantastic. If you don't do it, you'll kick yourself all the time. So that'd be my first one. The second one would be learn to delegate as quickly as possible, because you get more work done that way. I think do the right thing is right, as in, teaching people right from wrong. You don't have to be a shit in business to be successful. You can be a good person and still be successful. We watched. I know you have The Apprentice over there, and things like Shark Tank. We have that over here, and people see that on TV and they think, the only way I can get ahead in business is stamping on people and getting to number one. It does not have to be like that. What else? What else should I say? It's easy. It's easy. I mean, I struggle with this. It's easy to get distracted by shiny new objects. Oh, there's another good idea. There's another good idea. There's another good idea. And one of the things I found quite late on in my business career is the word no is brilliant. Because somebody say to you, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And actually, when you say no, we're British. We hate confrontation. We're terrible at that sort of thing. But what you learn is if you say no, you think, oh my God, I'm going to really upset this person. They're going to hate me. They're going to think I'm the most horrible person in the world. What they'll do is they'll go, oh, okay, I'll go ask somebody else, or I'll find a solution, or I'll do it myself. And by saying no, you end up doing the things you should be doing. And within that things you should be doing is something that comes up with my clients all the time. And it's, are you doing your $10 an hour jobs, your $100 an hour jobs, or your $1,000 an hour jobs? And as the business owner, you should be trying to do those £1,000 an hour jobs. And I've talked about delegation. So you can either delegate it, you can get a VA in, or you can get a member of staff in, or you just don't do it. And too many of my clients, with the caveat that as a startup, you have to do everything. So take that away. Too many of my clients are not doing $1,000 an hour jobs. They're still stuck doing $100 an hour jobs, or even $10 an hour jobs. And I say that from experience, because I was doing the $10 an hour jobs for far, far, far too long. And again, it's not supposed to sound arrogant. I'm running a $1 million turnover company, but I'm the one who's still buying the coffee and the toilet roll and sending out the invoices. What the hell am I doing? And it took me a long, long time. And with all due respect to maybe an admin person or a bookkeeper, you ain't going to pay yourself the salary you pay yourself as $1 million turnover CEO. You ain't going to pay a bookkeeper or an admin that. But that's what you're doing by doing it yourself. There's quite a lot of things there. I don't know if that answered the question. Was it quite a lot? Quite a lot. There are various learnings through my career, I think.
Interesting. You mentioned your clients and your mentees. I want to talk about that for a minute. So I used to not understand paid coaches, especially in business. And so one day we're walking, and I'm talking to a friend of mine who was really into fitness, and he'd done a bit of professional fighting. And I mentioned, I was like, yeah, I don't get these people. Like they pay all this money for business coaches. Who the hell does that? Well, like, how dumb could you be? And he's like, well, you see, if you're a pro fighter, you could be Conor McGregor, but you'll still pay for a coach and have a coach on your side. He says, why do you think that is? I say, I don't know. He says, because no matter how good of a fighter you are, because you're in the ring and you're in the emotions, you're caught up in the emotions in that moment, you don't always see things. You don't always notice things. And what a coach does is they watch on the sidelines without the emotion. They watch it and they can tell you things you miss because of your emotional state, because you're in that moment. And so he says with business coaches, it's similar, right? If you think of yourself as the boxer in the ring, you're not seeing the mistakes you're making because you're just so focused on not getting hit and not being knocked out. But your coach sees them. And because he can tell you in the breaks, you end up, not messing up and not getting knocked out because of things you're missing. And so it seems like that's the case with business as well. If you're running a company that's 10 million in revenue, but you're still buying toilet paper, obviously at some point that's going to exhaust you. And it's, it's not going to lead to any great outcomes. And a coach can tell you that. So you mentioned some of the things that holds back your mentees. Tell me about other patterns you've noticed looking under the hood, things that you've mentioned about your boxers, so to speak, where they mess up and where they could be doing much better.
It's interesting you use Conor McGregor as your example. I use Usain Bolt. Yeah, the man is the fastest person in the world. He's won, don't know how many gold medals he won. He had a coach. So if he's the best in the world at doing something and he has a coach, you should have a coach. Okay. And you're absolutely right. A coach on the outside can see. Um, in terms of what I see with my clients, there's a number of things. And I think one of them is the whole helicopter view of, I look at a business or I look at a business owner and without being arrogant, yeah, quite quickly you can say, well, that's an issue, that's an issue, that's an issue that they can't see. And that's not because I'm brilliant. It's just because conceptually you can see things from the outside that people who are on the inside can't see. And that's the first thing. The second thing is having somebody who you're accountable to without there being your boss. It's great running your own business because you're the boss. You can decide what to do whenever you want to do it. The problem is you end up doing sometimes the wrong things or sometimes just not doing the right things. And I always compare it to a cold piece of broccoli on your plate. So I'm really looking forward to the dessert. I want that ice cream. I want that cake. I want that cheesecake. But you should be eating the broccoli because it's good for you, but you don't because you haven't got somebody saying, Burke, eat your broccoli. And that's something I do with my clients is I will sit down with them and we might have a meeting. And then 2 weeks later, I will say, Burke, we agreed in the last meeting you were going to do A, B, and C. And you, because it's your business, you say, well, actually, I did D, E, and F because it's my business. Now, if you haven't got somebody like me saying you really should have done A, B, and C, you'll just carry on doing C, D, E, and F. So that's the other thing. And then there's the third point, which is just having somebody, particularly if they've been there and done it, but anybody to a large degree, somebody you can talk to who isn't invested in the broadest sense, invested in the business or you, who will give you an honest answer. So, Burke, you'll come to me and you'll say, Phil, I've got this great idea for the business and I want to do this, this, and this, and this, this. Now, I won't say, no, that's wrong. What I will say is, okay, let's look at it. Why is that a good idea? What might go wrong? Why is that a bad idea? And you might go, do you know what? Now you've said that, I actually think this might be a better idea. Let's talk about that. And as a business owner, and I did this, and loads of business owners will recognise this. A lot of the time, you're making it up as you go along, with some education and some landscape to work in, but you're making it up as you go along, and that doesn't sound really good in the Monday morning team meeting. Hey guys, this is a strategy because I think it might be right, but I'm not really sure. Whereas if you've got somebody like me or any other external coach or mentor or sounding board, you can sit with them and go, I'm thinking of this strategy. What do you think? Or I've got this opportunity. I don't know how to maximize it. Or I've got this problem. How do I solve it? And I always use the example. Let's say you're going to buy your competitor down the road. Okay, it does the same as you do, but they're slightly different to you. Good idea. Usually makes sense. And if if you've got nobody else external to speak to about it, and you sit down with your sales manager, and let's say, Burke, you're my sales manager. I say, hey, Burke, we're going to buy the company down the road. What do you think? Okay. Your first reaction is, shit, I bet they've got a sales manager as well, and I'm going to lose my job. So you say, Phil, I'm not sure that's a good idea. And really, what I'm saying is, there are too many people who have usually subjective, but a subjective and subconscious bias to advise you. So your friend down the road who runs a business, or your guy you play golf with, or your husband, or your wife, or your sales manager, or your solicitor, or your accountant will have a subconscious bias. Whereas somebody who's external will be able to say, Burke, that's wrong. Or Burke, let's talk about that. Or throwing things around. Or Burke, you didn't do A, B, and C. You didn't eat your broccoli.
Awesome. Phil, that's it for the questions I've got. Any stories or lessons that you'd like to finish off with?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, if anybody's interested in working with me, you can find me at www.philfraser.co.uk. And if anybody wants, a free half an hour with me, wants to bounce ideas around, that quite happy. Just jump on my website and drop me an email, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn most days.